This week's episode is sponsored by Patreon supporter Brigadier Darman, who requested the basics on one of their long-time favourite characters, the rough-and-tumble wrecker, Roadbuster. The toy that would become the original Roadbuster was created by Japanese company Takatoku Toys. Known as the Mugen Caliber, it transformed into a four-wheel drive vehicle and was released in the 1983 toy line Special Armoured Battalion Dorvac. Takatoku went out of business in 1984, but the design for the Caliber was acquired by Bandai, and from there it was licensed by Hasbro and imported to become part of the second year of the Transformers toy line in 1985 as Roadbuster. Marketed alongside fellow Dorvac import Whirl as an Autobot deluxe vehicle. Marvel Comics writer Bob Budiansky wrote a profile for Roadbuster that characterized him as the Autobots' ground assault commander. On the battlefield, he was a natural, charismatic leader whose violent enthusiasm for demolishing Decepticons was inspiring to his fellow Autobots. But outside of combat, he quickly grew bored and quiet, because fighting was the only thing that made him happy, and he knew that in the dirty business of war, that made him dirtier than most. Now, unfortunately, Hasbro had previously faced some legal difficulties incorporating another Bandai toy they had licensed, Jetfire, into the Transformers animated series, and they clearly either wouldn't or couldn't go through it again, because Roadbuster appeared in almost no American media. His only role was a brief mention in the 1985 storybook Battle for Earth. However, he did appear in the British Transformers comic published by Marvel, in which he was a member of the down and dirty Autobot commando unit, the Wreckers. Roadbuster appeared in several stories as part of the team, but eventually met his end in the 1989 story Time Wars. During a battle between the Wreckers and the deadly Decepticon from the future, Galvatron, Roadbuster unleashed an unstable experimental weapon called a Path Blaster on their enemy. The blaster succeeded in severely damaging Galvatron, but then overloaded and exploded, killing Roadbuster. Now, because of his lack of appearances anywhere else, being a wrecker became one of the most famous things about Roadbuster, and in the 21st century, when the team returned to star in new comic books, he would reliably continue to appear among its ranks, in stories from Dreamwave Productions, IDW Publishing, and even the Marvel sequel series Regeneration 1, an alternate continuation of the classic comic that ignored his death, and gave him a prominent role leading a wrecker mission to liberate the Autobot spaceship the Ark from Decepticon control. But it's not just comics. Roadbuster's membership in the Wreckers has been his defining attribute all across the franchise, with multiple new incarnations of the character being introduced across different Transformers series who have all served on their world's version of the team. Most prominent among them, the live-action movie incarnation of Roadbuster, introduced in the 2011 film Dark of the Moon, a foul-mouthed Scottish warrior engineer who transformed into a Chevrolet Impala NASCAR stock car, and the Roadbuster from the world of the Fall of Cybertron video game, a retool of the Decepticon assault vehicle Swindle, released in the Transformers Generations toy line in 2013, who could combine with the other Wrecker figures in the series to become the giant robot Ruination. In a callback to the character's fate in the Marvel comic book, the Transformers Prime cartoon name-checked this Roadbuster as one of many Wreckers who had died in the line of duty. There's really just one version of the character who wasn't a Wrecker. The 2004 series, Transformers Energon, featured a brash young Autobot warrior in training who transformed into a pickup truck. In the Japanese market, this bot was named Roadbuster, but he had no connection to the original character, and in Hasbro markets, he was instead named Ironhide. Check out the basics on Ironhide to learn more about him. Other toys released during these years included the Roadbuster from 2008's Transformers Universe, a recolor of Cybertron Defense Hotshot from 2005's Transformers Cybertron, which converted into an armoured car, and homages like 2009's Roadbuster Ultra Magnus from Transformers Animated, and the 2013 Beast Hunters Bulkhead figures from Transformers Prime, which paid tribute to Roadbuster's orange, green and brown colour scheme. But eventually, a true updated figure of the original Roadbuster was released in the Generations line in 2014, a brand new mould that transformed into an armoured 4x4, loaded with modular combining weaponry. This new toy was also released in Japan as part of the Transformers Legends line, earning Roadbuster an appearance in the tie-in Legends manga. In this goofy universe, Roadbuster and Whirl were robots built by the nostalgia-obsessed villain Tankor, who based them on Dorvac toys because he wanted to turn the world back to the way it was in the 80s. When Tankor was defeated, the repentant Roadbuster and Whirl joined the Autobots and hopped dimensions into the world of the original Transformers cartoon, where they helped to found that universe's version of the Wreckers. In early 2015, a recolor of the Generations toy was released in Japan's Transformers Cloud line, which, in a uniquely Japanese homage, was coloured like the Energon character. Online prose stories explained that this version of Roadbuster came from a world where the Autobots were the guardians of the multiverse, and told the tale of his quest for revenge on the Decepticon Hellwarp for killing his fellow wrecker, Iron Fist. Later in 2015, Roadbuster enjoyed another prominent role in the comic book miniseries Sins of the Wreckers from IDW Publishing. Roadbuster had been a recurring character in IDW stories for close to a decade by this point, regularly appearing among the changing ranks of the Wreckers, and enjoying a brief starring role in the 2012 prose story 0 Point, written from his perspective as he tended the comatose body of Wreckers leader Springer. Sins revealed a terrible secret from his past that Autobot High Command had hushed up. Once, he had apparently gone mad and killed a squad of cadets under his command, claiming he had been ordered to do so by the voice of the Transformer God of Death, Mortalus. But in reality, the voice had actually belonged to the evil size-changing scientist Tarantulas, who had shrunk down to whisper unseen in Roadbuster's ear, manipulating him for his own wicked ends. Upon learning what had been done to him, Roadbuster sought revenge, only for Tarantulas to shrink down and climb into his ear once more, then instantly grow back to full size, killing Roadbuster by exploding his head from the inside out. That was Roadbuster's last big role. In the decade since, he hasn't seen much action outside of small appearances in the occasional piece of ancillary media or merchandise line. But however long it might take for him to step into the spotlight again, it's a good bet that wherever you find the Wreckers, you'll more than likely find Roadbuster ready to wreck and rule. And those are the basics on Roadbuster. Thanks to the Brigadier for sponsoring this episode. As ever, be sure to subscribe for more stories from across the Transformers universe like this one. Plus, you can get early, ad-free access to new episodes if you support the show on Patreon.